I dove into something that was way deeper than I expected, and I wanted to share some of that with you. Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist podcast, designed for health and wellness practitioners interested in fascia science. I'm Amy Mayer, occupational therapist, practice owner, author, and educator with more than 30 years of experience using fascia techniques across many settings. Each episode brings practical insights and thought-provoking conversations to help you expand your skills and better serve your clients. Let's get started. Hi, this is Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. This edition, I'll be talking about sound baths. And if you don't know what that is, because many people that I've talked to this week have never heard of a sound bath, I will hopefully explain that to you as we go along. So last weekend, I took a 2-day continuing education course on sound baths. I needed some CE for my RYT, which is my registered yoga teacher. It's not really a certification. It's kind of a certification, I guess, through Yoga Alliance. Anyway, maybe some of you don't know that I have that RYT on top of my OT and use that information quite regularly. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this somewhere else in episodes of the podcast, but I years ago thought yoga was just sort of this kind of ridiculous way of exercising, and I really had no interest in it whatsoever. And a good friend of mine who's now passed told me, Amy, you got to get into some yoga, because at the time I was completing my doctorate, raising a family, busy job, lots of things going on, and my stress level was pretty darn high. And so she took me to a class, and I really kind of fell in love with it. And it made me feel flexible and strong, and I could see the changes in my body happening very quickly. And this was just a simple class that I took at the Y. This was not in a fancy yoga studio or anything. And I decided as soon as I finished my doctorate, the first thing I was going to do was I was going to learn how to teach yoga, because I saw the value in it. And also at that time, I was at Creighton, but I was positioned at the hospital. And part of my role there was the chair of our hospital wellness committee. And I, of course, couldn't get a budget for bringing teachers in to teach classes. So I decided I would get trained myself to teach yoga. And I asked my teacher at the Y what she did, and she had gone to a company called Yoga Fit. I don't get any kickback from them or anybody else, by the way. But I ended up signing up through them because it was just a weekend commitment. You could sign up for their level 1 and learn all the poses, learn about safety, learn some of the details, and then you could teach. And in the world of yoga, it's not like occupational therapy. It's not a licensed profession. So you don't need a license or a certification to teach it. And they do have lots of different levels. They have the 200, the 300, the 500, and I think there's even bigger ones than that. But in a lot of the companies you have to, or organizations that do yoga teacher trainings, you have to commit to the whole thing, and oftentimes it's very intensively. And the one I chose wasn't like that. And I figured, well, I've got a master's in in OT, and now I've got a doctorate, and I understand anatomy. I don't think I need all the other things. I want to learn the poses, and I want to be able to teach them and have people follow along and understand what I'm trying to get them to do. So I didn't think I was going to complete it, and then I decided this class looks interesting, and that class looks interesting, and I'd really like to learn more about yin, and I'd really like to learn more about restorative and some of the other types. And so I kept taking the classes and eventually completed my 200. And when you do that, you can go to Yoga Alliance and you can register yourself on their website, and then people can find you as a teacher, and they track your continuing ed. You have to have, so I don't remember what it is right now, so much continuing education over certain periods of time, and then you can use the RYT behind your name. And I've been teaching, gosh, I've finished my first class and started teaching classes in 2007. And I think I have taught a weekly class since then. I continued to teach at the hospital even after I moved to the academic side full time. And then when I left the hospital to start this practice, I continued, and I actually had some of the people follow me over into my practice. And it's been a Tuesday, 4:45. Anybody can sign up and join in. I call it Fascia-Informed yoga, because we integrate a lot of variety, a lot of twisting, a lot of expansion and compression, all the things the fascia loves, challenging our bodies with unique movements. And one of the things that we came up with, my class, it's a fairly irreverent class, so if you do sign up, please don't expect a typical yoga class. But we came up with this phrase that we use, our poses are a guide and not the goal. So I'm mostly teaching to people who you would not find or probably feel comfortable in a very traditional yoga studio. A lot of retired people, a lot of very stiff people, a lot of people with a variety of injuries. But I think my OT degree really helps me, and experience really helps me adapt the poses for each person. And I give a lot of variety, because I've got some people in there who can do poses far better than I can. So I try to give lots of options for people. But anyway, I didn't necessarily intend to go down that whole rabbit hole. But I'll say one more thing about that. I do have, if you, my daughter tells me I always change in the middle of a sentence what I'm trying to say, but I keep thinking about important things to lay the foundation. I have had clients over the years who have come to me and said, hey, my doc said I should be doing some yoga. And I'm like, oh, great. What else did they tell you? And they said, well, nothing, just I should start doing yoga. And that is dangerous, because especially people with an illness, a condition, an injury, if they land in the wrong class, it can make things worse. And, that would be the worst thing, to get injured, but they could also potentially just quit and decide it's not right for them. I don't understand why my doctor told me to go to this class, because they landed in a power yoga class and just didn't know the difference between that and yin or restorative. So I actually have a course in my library that I created for the public, and then I created a version for healthcare practitioners, and I call it the Occupational Therapy Practitioner's Guide to Yoga for Your Health. And it basically takes you through what are all the different styles of yoga and how do they match up with the different issues that people might have. And excuse me, takes you through all different types of health conditions and the intersection with yoga, everything from mental, emotional health, physical health, women's health, aging, athletic performance, kids, and even yoga and rehabilitation. So kind of intersects with all the different styles, and then I take you through those styles and give you a teeny little practice to do to sort of get the feel for what that style is. And the goal is to help practitioners say more than, hey, you should take some yoga, but then be able to add, maybe you should look for a class that's beginner yin. So they know there's different levels out there. And the class also then helps people understand, or practitioners understand, that you can set somebody up. They don't have to go to a class. There's so much out there online now that you can take, or somebody might not be online. What are some books that you can direct people to that would help them get started at home if that's their preference? So anyway, I just wanted you to know that is out there. And then I like to, one of the things I was going to say about the class that I took way back in the early 2000s was I loved to go to the Y and take the course, but I would always set my mat up in the back. I'm kind of a back row person, no matter what I'm participating in. But I would set my mat up in the back and I would do the class and follow along and be a great little student. But I would sneak out when it came to Shavasana, the corpse pose, the final relaxation, the meditation, because I thought that was just a waste of time to just lay down and lay there and maybe listen to the teacher guide you through a meditation or something. It just didn't resonate with me. I didn't feel like I needed it. I was, of course, very, very, very wrong. And then even in my classes that I taught for the last however long it's been, I tend to, over time, tended to really minimize that last piece, that Shavasana, the meditation. And as I've aged, I've definitely shifted my stance on that. And I think that's very, very important. I do think that there's the people that tend to come into my practice are very body-based people. They want their body to work better. And they don't necessarily, they don't make the connection between stress and how their body feels. They don't make the connection between relaxing your body and having that translate into better health. So I'm continually trying to educate my clients, and when I teach my classes, it's not a very quiet class. I'm usually teaching something, reminding about something, and it is often making that connection between something that's happening to us externally to how our body functions. And of course, I'm always trying to connect that with the fascia as well. So as I've taken my continuing ed credits for my RYT over the years, I've slowly moved away from things like power yoga and more into, give me a class on yin. Let's take a class on yoga nidra. Let's take a class on restorative. And now this class, a friend of mine was actually teaching it and told me about it. And I'm like, cool, you're teaching it? It's her first time teaching, so I wanted to support her. And I've been to sound baths. And let me explain what that is for someone out there that isn't familiar with it. A sound bath is essentially can be integrated with a meditation. It can be integrated with a yoga practice. It's often something that you experience when you are just laying still, eyes closed. Often you might be in a position where you're all kind of bundled up in a blanket and you've got a pillow and maybe you've got an eye pillow on, so you're blocking out the light. Your legs are supported. So it might look like a restorative class is going on. And then there's usually the teacher is, people might be around the teacher, or it might be set up like a typical yoga classroom. But the teacher has all kinds of different tools or instruments that make sounds. And typically when we think of a sound bath, you think of the crystal bowls or the Tibetan bowls. And so when you strike the bowl with a mallet or a tool of some kind, then it has this beautiful sound that fills the room, and then you can listen to that sound trail off. You can also do something, I believe it's called droning, where you take the tool and you sort of drag it around the outside of the bowl, and it just amplifies that sound, and it just wah, wah. I'll try to do that for you here in a second. And sometimes you can get so loud. There was a couple times when the teacher was doing it at the class, and I literally had to cover my ears because she was using this great big bowl that was probably, I don't know, bigger than a foot in diameter. and it was crystal, and it was just making this massive sound. And this was not a small room that we were in. So there's the bowls, but there's also things. I've been to sound bath where they have tools or instruments that are used in healing ceremonies or other different kinds of ceremonies all over the world. So a didgeridoo, for example, or a rain stick that it has beads inside of it, and as you turn it, it sounds like rain. She had a instrument that it looked like a tambourine, and there was beads inside of it, and as you tilted it, the beads would roll through on the whatever the I don't know if it was like it looked like a little drum, but as the beads hit, I don't know what the material was, but it sounded like a wave. And this tiny little instrument just filled the room with this crashing wave sound. She had beads and little pieces of ceramic, I think it was, that were all kind of tied together. And when she held it up, to me it sounded like breaking glass, but it more gently it can sound like rain. One of the other tools was literally nuts on a string and many tied to a piece of wood. And then when you held that, it made this clacky sound. And anyway, there's just tons of different instruments, tools that you can use to make all these different sounds. And part of it is about focusing your attention, and part of it is about brain entrainment. Part of it is about stimulating the vagus nerve so that you move into a parasympathetic state. And I will tell you that the class I took was very experiential. It was very much about putting your hands on all these different tools and experiencing them when the teacher used them. And we did a sound bath for each other, so we got to play the instruments for everyone. But it was hearing it, it was feeling it, it was doing it yourself. So it didn't go deeply down into the rabbit hole that I went down when I got home into what's the scientific evidence behind this. And I dove into something that was way deeper than I expected. And I wanted to share some of that with you. So let me first, before we go there, I have this teeny little, so the teacher at the class had bowls of every shape and size and style. And what I have in my hand right now is I think it's about 3.5 inches in diameter. And it's a metal Tibetan bowl. And I'm not remember, I think it's an A. Yes, it's the A note. So if you have an app that has a frequency reader, you can use that, and you can hear this is an A note, and I believe it's 850-ish hertz, and that would, if you know anything about chakras, it would resonate with the throat chakra. I don't think we're going to go down that rabbit hole today, but we'll see where we get. So I'm going to strike the bowl first. If you do have really sensitive ears, you might want to pull your pods out or pull them, turn it down just a little bit. But I'm going to strike it, and what I'd like you to do is just listen to how the sound lingers, and then just follow the sound with your mind as it begins to dissipate. You may not hear it still going, but it is still going. So sometimes I will use this and just follow it till it dissipates, and it's a really nice way of focusing your attention. Okay, now I'm going to try to see if I can make it sing. So as I said, I think that's called droning. So I strike the bowl and then I drag the tool. I have a little teeny wooden mallet that I use for this particular bowl. So you can see how loud that can get just from dragging and creating that vibration of the interaction of the tool with the bowl. It really creates a cool sound. And so imagine a bowl that's bigger than a foot in diameter compared to my teeny tiny little one. And anyway, that it's pretty fascinating. So the first thing I was wondering about is I pulled up, of course, some studies I thought I would share with you. This episode of the Fascia-Informed Therapist is brought to you by me. I offer Fascia-Informed CE for health and wellness practitioners both online and in person. Whether you're looking for flexible self-paced courses or hands-on in-person workshops, you'll find evidence-based practical tools you can apply right away in your practice. Visit fasciainformed.com to explore upcoming offerings and take your next step as a fascia-informed therapist. Now back to the podcast. And the first one is a 2023 study, and it is from the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. And the title of it is, Does the Sound of a Singing Bowl Synchronize Meditational Brainwaves in Listeners? And I believe this study was done in Korea. It's a small study, and they had a total of 17 participants, and they hooked them up to an EEG, and then they played the singing bowl. And I'm going to read you their conclusions. The beat frequency of the singing bowl sound used in the study was determined to belong to the theta wave region. We didn't talk about the waves yet, but maybe we should do that, which is known to increase during meditation. In this experiment, the brain waves of the participants who heard the singing bowl were observed to be activated in a few minutes with strong beat rhythm. The study presents experimental evidence that singing bowl sound likely activates brain waves that are effectively synchronized with beating rhythm. The present findings underpin that the strongly beating singing bowl sound facilitates meditation and relaxation and psychological stability. Okay, psychological stability sounds like a big claim, but my question I guess I was asking myself was, is there anything out there that begins to tell us that there is a connection between this external sound that it creates and something actually happening in the brain? And so if you're not familiar with the different, I'm going to pull up a picture I have on my phone. The different brain waves, here we go. So there's the gamma waves, beta, alpha, theta, delta. And the gamma is more of when we are in flow or peak experiences and everything's synchronizing. That's when, we're busy and we're doing something we really enjoy doing, for example. And then delta waves on the other end of the spectrum are slower, and that is when we're in deep sleep or transcendence or restoration. And theta waves is typically where we would go when we are meditating, and I believe that is what they determined was in training. The bowl was in training. So the concept of entrainment is when something about us begins to synchronize with something happening in the outside world. And probably the easiest way to describe that would be if you've always known that certain kind of music will pep you up, or different kind of music might pull you into a certain mood. Like if you want to cry, you put on sad music, or sometimes when I'm headed into the office and I'm feeling a little sluggish, I might put on some music that has a strong beat and an upbeat to it that might make me want to bounce a little or sing a little. And this is not, we could go down the path of music therapy too. And that was a path that I started to go down. Then I'm like, nah, too much. Let's just stick with one thing here. So entrainment is when something externally starts to shift something that's happening to us internally. And it's often connected with when we think about entrainment, connected with brainwaves. And please keep in mind, there's probably people out there that know a heck of a lot more about this than I do. I'm just going down this rabbit hole after attending a really cool workshop. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some other notes that I made because I looked up several other studies kind of wanting to know, okay, what's any evidence out there that we can turn to. And I found, let's see, we're going to go chronologically here. There's a 2017 article in the Journal of Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicines called The Effects of Singing Bowl Sound Meditation on Mood, Tension, and Well-Being. And a lot of these are small studies. I do have a couple of systematic reviews. Is that what they're called? Why is that not sounding right? So this is a small pre-post study, 62 participants, and they examined sound meditations using Tibetan singing bowls. So those are the metal ones. They also use crystal bowls and gongs. They had different gongs at this workshop, and dang, it's just deep. The vibration coming off that was profound. Results showed that participants experienced reductions in physical pain, anxiety, and tension, with notable benefits for adults aged 40 to 59. So maybe that's why I am now very interested in this, and being in that age range. Maybe there's a greater need for it because of the things that happen in our lives in this age range, or we handle stress better when we're younger. Who knows? The researchers noted improvements in mood, spiritual well-being following a single 60-minute sound bath session that was primarily crystal bowls. Okay, we're going to keep going. The next is a 2020 study in the Journal of Complementary Therapies in Medicine called The Human Health Effects of Singing Bowls, a Systematic Review. Okay, so their objective was to determine the human health effects, beneficial or adverse, of any singing bowl therapies. And then let's go down to their conclusions. Given there were few studies and the potential risk of methodological bias, we cannot recommend singing bowl therapies at this stage. As the evidence suggests positive health effects, we recommend future studies consider the effect of singing bowl therapies using more robust study methods, allowing for evidence-based recommendations to be made to reduce disease burden. So that sounds like a lot of what we hear. We need more robust studies. Yes, we absolutely need more robust studies on a heck of a lot of the things that we do as OTs and all the other professions that surround us. Okay, we're going to keep going. This is a 2024 study in a journal called Explore out of New York. It's called Exploring the Healing Power of Singing Bowls, an overview of key findings and potential benefits. And they say that studies have shown that singing bowl sound meditation can produce physiological and psychological responses, reducing negative affect, and increasing positive affect, as well as improving blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate. Singing bowl sound meditation may be an effective, low-cost, low-technology. I will tell you, though, it is not inexpensive. The amount of money that she has spent on all those bowls has to be astronomical. I went to look and see if I have no idea what I spent on this teeny tiny little bowl, but I went to a very reputable dealer that's actually here in Nebraska and looked for bowls, and I wanted a slightly bigger Tibetan bowl that resonated at the heart chakra level. I don't remember what that note is right now, but I was easily going to spend $300 just for one bowl. So it may be low cost to deliver it, but to get started as a sound bath teacher, wow. Okay, low cost, low technology intervention for reducing feelings of tension, anxiety, and depression while promoting spiritual well being. However, further research is needed to determine the long term effects of singing bowl sound meditation on physiological and psychological well being. Now, I will say that after that weekend of we only met from 8 to 1 on Saturday and Sunday, so it wasn't an all day thing, thank goodness. But I noticed on Monday and Tuesday while I was in the office, I was hearing and noticing every sound, and every police car that drove by, every car that had a loud engine or music blaring, people talking, even in our building that weren't in our unit. Everything, when any door closed, or it was, I can usually tune those things out pretty well, but I don't know, I was just noticing. I don't know what that means, but okay. And then I think our last one here is also a systematic review. And this is actually a 2025 study in the Journal of Integrative Medicine Research. And it's called Therapeutic Effects of Singing Bowls, a systematic review of clinical studies. So I thought it was really great that 2025 we're looking at something, and I did not mention and go into the history of these things, but they've been around for thousands of years. So we're still pulling things from history into modern use, and I think that's great. Okay, let's see. Let's look at their results. We'll talk about the results because they found a lot of studies. 19 clinical studies originated from 8 countries, and I think this study is out of China, perhaps. Half of the random controlled trials, 9 of them. The remainder included case studies, 7, randomized crossover studies, and non-random controlled. Evidence showed that singing bowl has been applied to a wide range of conditions, including the elderly, use in surgery, Parkinson's disease, pain, cancer, neurological function, sleep disorder, depression, anxiety, autism spectrum disorder, as well as physiological and psychological function, and it has mainly focused on outcomes related to mental health. And their conclusion, singing bowl may have potential to alleviate anxiety, depression, improve quality of sleep, great, and cognitive function in various patient groups, and change autistic behavior. Okay, that's a big claim. Interesting. It'd be cool to go back into the study and find which study they found that says that. It also shows potential benefits in physiological improvements like electroencephalography. And I don't think I grabbed this study and put it in. Oh, maybe I did. Maybe this is it. This is a 2025 study, and this is in the Journal of Peri-Anesthesia Nursing, the official journal of the American Society of Peri-Anesthesia Nurses. And the title of the study, I'm so glad I popped this in here, Investigating the Effect of Singing Bowl Sound on the Level of State Trait Anxiety in Physiological Variables of Patients Awaiting Angiography. So they must have a nurse in that area who's also perhaps a yoga teacher who knows about sound. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so the purpose of their study. Many patients are anxious and fearful while awaiting angiography, which may negatively affect the performance of this test and their physiological variables. The aim of the study was to investigate the effect of singing bowl sounds on situational anxiety and physiological variables of patients waiting angiography. And so they did a semi-experimental pre-test, post-test with 2 groups. Let's see, this was done in 2022 to 2023, and they had 60 people, 30 in the intervention and 30 in the control, who were awaiting angiography. 1 hour before angiography, the intervention group received the singing bowl intervention in addition to routine departmental interventions, whereas the control group received only routine departmental interventions, and they used a state trait anxiety inventory, form Y1, to measure anxiety. State trait anxiety, this is their findings, state trait anxiety after the intervention was significantly lower in the intervention group than the control group. Systolic and diastolic blood pressure, pulse rate, respiration were the same in the intervention and control groups before and after the intervention and showed no statistically significant differences. And their conclusion is as follows. The results indicate that the singing bowl intervention led to an improvement in anxiety in patients waiting for angiography. Considering that this intervention was performed with a simple, cheap, and accessible instrument, it is therefore suggested that this method be used to reduce state trait anxiety in clinical anxiety-provoking conditions. Since the physiological variables of the patients before and after the intervention showed no statistically significant difference in both groups, it suggested that the physiological variables should be investigated in future studies and several clinical situations so that a scientific opinion on the effect of singing bowls on these variables can be given with more certainty. So I thought that one in particular was very interesting, and of course made me think about, why did they choose the singing bowl? Could they have used an app that guides breath work, or could they have had them do something else? And I think the intention is, what can we do to calm people down? And the bowls are very pleasant, I think, for most people. So they probably chose it because they had someone, like I said, in the department that knew how to do that. But I'm guessing you could probably use a lot of different ways to calm somebody or focus their attention, distract them, and probably get similar outcomes and reduced anxiety. But anyway, so there you go. There's something out there. It's being studied. Is it something that you could potentially integrate in your fascia practice? I don't know. I will tell you what I was already doing, that I didn't really think about it as particular as being a sound bath, but I do two things. I do have another little metal bowl that I have in my office at the clinic, and I have my own little routine where when I'm setting up my room, I turn the lights on, and then I have the little bowl is sitting on the top shelf next to one of the lights, so I turn the light on, and then I strike the bowl and I listen to the sound sort of as a way to focus myself. And then I have a little meditation that I say with that, where I'm inviting, and this will vary depending on your belief system, but I invite my guides and the guides of the clients that I have coming in today to be present, to guide me and help me do my best work for them, and that they receive the most healing possible. So I use sound in that way. So it's for me. I don't typically strike the bowl when I have clients in the room. The other thing I have is I have a little, it's a really beautiful chime, and I hang it from the ceiling, and I hang on the bottom of a lot of chimes, they have this little piece that the wind catches it and moves it. So the chimes are inside a wood cylinder, and then the piece hangs down. And so I have it hung at just the right height. So as my door opens and closes, it strikes that and the chimes go off. And partly I do that just because I like the sound of it. But the other reason I do that is because sometimes I'm going in and out of the room to maybe get the cups, or maybe to wash my hands, or maybe to do something. And if the client is laying on the table, their eyes are closed, or maybe they're laying face down, they hear the chimes and they know I'm going out, and then they know I'm coming in. So it's just a sort of a cue that I use it for. And I don't typically use sound in my yoga classes, but I think I might start doing that. So now maybe this is the part you've been like, okay, how does this intersect with fascia. And this is ending up being kind of a long podcast. Sorry. What we had to do at the end of the class was we had to do a meditation or a sound bath for the rest of the class. And we could integrate a meditation if we wanted to. And so I did me. And what I decided to do was to do kind of a little science lesson. And these are my thoughts on how I see the intersection of fascia and the type of sound that we're using. Because there's other type of sound we use, like ultrasound and things like that, but we're talking just about this kind of sound. So I'm going to just read you the meditation that I did. And I was using, throughout the meditation, I had 3 different crystal bowls that resonated at the level of the heart chakra. If you're curious about chakras, you can Google that. Just Google that. I'm not going to make this podcast longer, but they resonate at the level of the heart chakra. So you're going to hear me talk about the heart chakra as I read you the meditation that I did for them. And periodically, as I was saying, I would strike the bowls and make the bowls sing, and pausing in between some of these statements so that the people in the room who didn't know as much about fascia could actually ponder on that statement a little bit. Okay, so you might think this is kind of silly, but you may kick back and, chill out, and I'll kind of make this maybe a little meditation, and you can play along. So I started with, go ahead, sit down, lay down, see if you can make yourself 5 to 10% more comfortable. Soften your body into the chair, the mat, wherever you are. If you are listening to this while you're driving, though, maybe you should choose to listen to it later, or listen to it with a lot of alertness and less of a meditation and more alertness. Remember, I'm striking bowls. So sense the vibrations as they travel through space to reach you. You're sensing the vibrations consciously through your ears. You're feeling them on your skin. You may be even feeling them in your bones. You're also sensing the vibrations unconsciously through your fascial system. Imagine inside your body all your muscles, bones, nerves, arteries, and organs, all being supported and held gently in place by your fascial system. This 3-dimensional web of fascia does not just surround each structure. It weaves its way into every structure, reaching in and connecting with each and every cell in your body. It connects with every cell via tiny structures called integrins. These tiny integrins reach out from every cell into the fascial system, waiting for signals, information about what to do next, how to support you best. Your fascia, rich in collagen for strength and elastin for elasticity, senses all the pressures your body experiences, even the vibrations of sound. It is through the fascia that each cell knows what the body is experiencing. This is the miracle of mechanotransduction. The process of mechanotransduction begins as the fascia vibrates. The integrins interpret the vibrational input and signal each cell to respond with a biomechanical change. Just as the strings of a guitar are strummed with the fingers, the strands of our fascia are strummed with vibration of sound. As we experience the frequency of the heart chakra, 639 hertz, we connect and heal the heart, the regulator of the body. We promote equilibrium throughout the body, including the fascial system. As we focus on the heart, we can chant Yam, either silently to yourself or out loud with me. Breathe in and Yam. Either silently to yourself or repeating after me. I am love. Breathe in. I am love. Either silently to yourself or repeating after me. I pardon myself and others. Breathe in. I pardon myself and others. Either silently to yourself or repeating after me. I am receptive to giving and receiving love. Breathe in. I am receptive to giving and receiving love. The frequency of the heart interacts with the nervous system, calming the body and allowing us to sink into a parasympathetic state, a place where we can heal. Even short periods of time in the state can benefit us immensely. The fascial system communicates 5 times faster than the nervous system, spreading the vibration of 639 hertz throughout the body at the speed of sound, signaling each cell to heal itself. Sound and vibration also works intimately with the body's fluid systems. The fluid portion of the fascia represents approximately 25% of the body's total fluid. Vibration encourages this fluid to return to a less viscous state, which allows our bodies to move and glide more freely. Through the use of frequency and vibration, we support the heart chakra, the regulator, the balancer of the whole body, including the fascial system, which communicates with every cell. With every slow, rhythmic heartbeat, our fascia communicates this knowledge to each cell, signaling we're alive. With every long, slow, deep breath, our fascia communicates the lungs are expanding and contracting, and we are safe. Take a moment to send gratitude to your heart, your fascia, your cells, and the whole of you. And if you are meditating while you're listening to this, as you're ready, open your eyes and smile to yourself. So again, imagine that whole piece with beautiful sounds integrated within it. So everybody seemed to really enjoy it and feel like they learned something from it, but at the same time, they had a relaxing experience and connected with the heart chakra and hopefully experience a little love. Now, you may have noticed that in the middle of this, we chanted Yam. There's different sounds that connect with the different chakras, and Yam is connected with the heart. So I bring this up because our voice vibrates as well. And to me, the most powerful thing that we did in this class was at the end, we made a circle of the participants, and there was 8 of us, and including the teacher, and we took turns laying down in the middle. And the teacher played a song, and we all chanted along with the song. It was kind of a singing chant. And to hear all these voices and the vibrations of those voices in your body was it's making me feel a little emotional right now, but it was very magical. It was very, very healing. And I could feel that in my body even more than I could feel the vibrations of all the different tools and bowls that she had. So keeping that in mind too, when you're working with your clients, where is your voice? And are you projecting something that's calm? I've been to different therapists who tend to talk a lot about what's going on in their life and their problems, and is that helping people heal? And I have clients that want to talk about everything. And as I've said in other sessions, I let the client drive. They get to decide what we focus on and what we talk about, unless I really think they need to settle themselves, or we're not going to get anywhere with the hands-on techniques. But think about your voice as a tool and the vibrations it sends out as well. So I hope that you got something from this, and maybe I've given you just enough that you can go down your own rabbit hole in terms of how you might want to include sound in your practice, whether that is a sort of less traditional practice like mine, or we also listened to a study where they used it in a very traditional way, in healthcare. We'll call it traditional health, Western healthcare. And could you, as the more traditionally practicing therapist out there, could you also think about integrating this in some way in order to gather people's attention or focus before or after a session? So some things to think about, Okay, as with I'm going to try to do this at the end of every one. If you found this podcast helpful, I would definitely be grateful if you'd leave a rating or a review. It really helps other therapists and practitioners out there to discover us and join the Fascia-Informed conversation. So here's to advancing practice, one Fascia-Informed step at a time. Thank you. You've been listening to the Fascia-Informed Therapist Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. And if you'd like to go deeper, check out my continuing education courses, both online and in person. You can find them at fasciainformed.com. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to next time.